Welcome back to another episode of STEM and Stilettos. This is your host, Zofia Morales, and today we're going to dig into that ugly monster called burnout. And our guest today has been burned out but not broken, and she certainly has a hopeful message for any of you, and even myself, who may have hit a point where the weight of life's challenges just leaves you feeling overwhelmed and exhausted and maybe even broken. Maybe you're struggling to navigate a balance between your personal life and the demands of your business. These are very, very common situations that occur as a woman, especially as we tend to be the ones responsible for all the caretaking, which is a very demanding, draining sort of a job. Not that we don't do it with great joy and grateful when we can do it, but it takes a toll. And so if you're here feeling like that toll has been taken and you're looking for some help, you've arrived in the right place. Our guest today, Ravalika Aduri, is a data and AI consultant. She's a speaker and storyteller, passionate about building technology that remains deeply human. Working across healthcare and life sciences, she focuses on AI-driven transformation, responsible innovation, and human-centered leadership. She's known for blending enterprise strategy with empathy, bringing together conversations around intelligence, resilience, reinvestment, and trust in the age of AI. She has spoken at conferences and leadership events on topics ranging from empathy in AI to transformative impact of women in technology. Through her work and writing, she hopes to create spaces where ambition and authenticity can coexist. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here on the show with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful introduction.
Well, thank you. Now, if I can get my tongue to work straight, we'll be set. So tell us a little bit how you arrived in the world of technology and AI. What was your path that brought you into this world?
It's not the path I chose. It's the path I was destined to be, I guess. So I'm a girl who was born back in India, always wanted to become a doctor. Unfortunately, because of a fall, because of my hip surgery back in 2014, I had to choose whether I would want to study longer or just get done with my high school and pursue something bigger. And then, as a typical person who's from India, you have two options in front of you. Either do you want to become an engineer or into data and AI or a software developer, or do you want to become a doctor?
That's
And
it.
yeah,
A and B. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah. Those are the only two options because my family had predominantly a good number of doctors and predominantly a good number of software people. So we did not know a world outside of that. So we thought only if you made it to these careers, you were doing it big in life. And with all the data points that I had from my family and my friends, I was like, okay, if I definitely know I couldn't become a doctor because the amount of investment in time and energy I had to give in during my high school years, I couldn't give because of my injury. And hence, I just pivoted paths and I chose engineering in my undergrad. And there's no looking back from that day. Surprisingly fell in love with compilers and operating systems early on during my undergrad, and then later navigated through data science and AI. Today, where I am doing data and AI for life sciences and healthcare, which is close to becoming a doctor, but not entirely yet. So I think life for me has just sung in beautifully there. And data and AI has also interested me in a way because you tell stories with data. What you do with the data is more important than what the data does with you or for you. Correct? So, analyzing those stories, some outcome from those data, some outcome from the models we've built, something that could cater or help the society in general was always the impact that I was looking for. And nothing better than using data and AI to solve those problems in a much better way. And hence, here I am doing data and AI in the world of consulting.
Yes, to tell the story in a more constructive and useful way, perhaps.
Absolutely. Something that resonates with people much more often than just giving out numbers which people will not be able to understand.
Yeah, and I think coming out of the world of science, I'm coming from a background where people tend to think that the data just speaks for itself. I've heard that before. This data will just speak for itself. And I think for a certain tiny sub percentage of the population, that's the case. But unless you're like a statistician, it
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't. You need an interpreter.
Yep, yep. You can, there is a lot of data out there. You need to know what is relevant for the use case that you're trying to solve. So we
Yeah.
cannot entirely depend because there's anybody and everybody who can write on Quora and Reddit. It's all data, right? How
Yeah.
do you know what is relevant? How are you double checking or verifying those facts or double checking the information that is out there? So major chunk of my time goes in cleaning and understanding the data and using only relevant data for my use cases and then build models on that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's something that people forget when they open up their little chat browser window and go, okay, GPT, help me with this, is that it has been trained on a wide, massive data, some of which is significantly less reliable than other points.
Yep. And
And
it hallucinates after
yeah,
a while. Let's say if you've done like 10 or 20 queries, and then it just hallucinates because it's just overwhelmed with the data that it has. So I think, especially in the life sciences and pharma and healthcare domain, rather than using generative AI as something that can solve our problem, we should divert our attention towards precision AI more and measure our outcomes based on precision AI, wherein you create a dump or a place where only relevant data is directed. And you train the model to tell that, hey, this is the data that you need to look into and analyze, rather than just giving it an ocean of options out there and
yeah,
asking it to figure it out all by itself. And when you know that in our field, when a person's health is something that is going to be affected based on our decisions, we just cannot rely on generative AI. So I think
yeah.
that small tweak of generative AI to precision I think it's going to help us as a domain also stand apart from the rest of the world.
So define a little bit more clearly what you mean by precision AI. In my mind, I'm picturing it's like the difference between GPT in your browser window and installing an AI on your desktop and giving it a file folder full of research that you've compiled. Is that
Yes.
accurate or?
Yeah, you're there. You're almost there. So, major chunk of time that goes behind when you're preparing a model or you're building a model is cleaning up the data. What kind of data source we give our model also matters a lot, and that's how our outcome is going to based, right? So in precision AI, you are diverting your model to access a certain set of data sets or a certain set of data that is available which is relevant. You are going to give it statements like, hey, do not go read stuff about certain elements on Reddit or certain elements on
Right.
Quora. Rather, look at references from certain publications or maybe some blogs where it's already mentioned. Look at companies like so and so, which are doing a typical kind of work in this sense. This is the kind of reading that you and I should be doing before we feed the data into our model.
Yes.
And then our model will start building on it. In that case, firstly, from 1,000 pages of data, it would be automatically reduced to a third of it or maybe a fourth of it. And when it uses relevant information, for it to build better and more relevant models, it's easier rather than hallucinating over irrelevant information.
Yeah, exactly. Or giving you something that's been bouncing around on Reddit.
Yeah, and something that's not even entirely true, or maybe,
Yeah.
entirely, maybe it's just entirely false, and we do not have, like, I will just give you an example of what happened. It's not in our field, but it was for a lawyer, and he was trying to defend something in the court. And I think maybe the world of ChatGPT was all very overwhelming for him. So he just sat down and he wrote everything about the case to the GPT, gave in like a bunch of prompts, got the answers, took references from GPT, and the worst thing that he shouldn't have done is not check
You didn't
the,
check the
the
references.
references.
Oh
Yeah,
my God, because it will make up references. I've had to do
exactly.
that. Yes.
Yeah. And then he went into the courtroom, all prepared, all robotic material that he has in his hand to defend his case. And cited those references with such confidence, with such um,
Conviction.
conviction that he's like, GPT has given this, there's no way it's going to be wrong. And then the judge listens to all those references and they're like, okay, let me just check on these and then come back to you maybe in the follow-up hearing. 3 days later, when the follow-up hearing happens, he's like, none of the references that you've mentioned were actually the cases that have ever happened in the country.
Oh no.
There's no mention about it. So, for falsely giving your references, if it was not me and if it was any other judge, and if we actually trusted you on these citations or these references or these case studies that you're talking about,
Yeah, you'd set a bad precedent.
yeah, the
Yeah.
prosecutor would have been blamed for no reason at all. So, I think, in every field, we have to bring in more of responsible and precision AI. And rather than just use whatever AI gives you and follow it like a Bible.
Yeah,
You shouldn't.
exactly.
It's not the Bible that you can follow.
Absolutely. And I've discovered, having spent some time with the browser version, is it's very helpful for me to have put some of that customization instruction in the back end of it that says not all information is completely accurate. Some comes from more valid sources than others, and we want the most validated information.
Yep,
And
yep.
I would also put, one of my favorite things is, because AI is such a people pleaser, I will tell it, I know you want to make me happy. What will make me most happy is this. Give me a certainty on the answer. If there's conflicting information or something doesn't seem to quite jive with something else, I want you to tell me unsure and tell me why it's unsure. This is better than a confident and grossly inaccurate answer and will please me much more. And it does that now. Yay!
It's also prompt engineering, right? The way
Yes.
you ask your questions will help you get your answers in a much better way. If you just give it vague questions, vague information or summarization, I think it'll just give you the work that it knows. I think while we are giving the prompts, we have to be so specific and very detailed, like you would explain it to a kindergartner.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I write my prompts to GPT or any other OpenAI platforms that I use. I explain the complexity of a problem in such a way to the GPT model that even a first grader or a second grader would understand without having me to repeat it. And the more you simplify, I think the models understand better
Yeah.
and help us in solving the problem in a much better and a more accurate fashion.
Yeah, I like that. So we are up on our first break already, if you can believe
Mhm.
it. What would be some words of wisdom or maybe a thought exercise, perhaps, that the listeners can sit with over this first break around their own journey, their own experience with AI or working in the field of technology? What do you think would be a good thought exercise?
So I know that there is this huge statement of AI is going to replace our jobs. AI is going to do this. AI is going to wreck everything out of humans, and it's only going to be robots. I don't think that is true. I think all of us should. We've had bubbles, right? At every phase, we had, let's say, the internet bubble that came out back in the past. Then it was internet services on the phone. They were like, okay, now the phone is going to make us get rid of our laptops and iPads. So at every instance, I think there is something that we are worried about. What we worry about changes, but as humans, we are always worried about something. 10 years ago, it was about computer vision. Today, computer vision is just stagnant. Nobody really talks about analysis, image resolution, what are the X-rays doing? Nobody. It's just become stagnant. With AI, the only issue is it's learning much more faster compared to the other technologies that have come into the market. But that does not mean we as humans are not going to have any impact on the world. I
Yeah.
think we're the only people who are going to make it much more saner, much more safer for each of us. And I think we should reflect on the fact that how we can use AI to leverage what we already do best. And I think we can get much more better at it than we already are today. And so it's like we have to complement working with AI and not treat it as a threat. Because the moment we start treating it as a threat, we become so rigid to learning the good things about AI as well,
Right.
right? So I think we just have to put the noise aside and just try understanding how to leverage it. And it's one of the most beautiful things that humans have ever invented so far and made it much more easier. I mean, imagine if I had to do some research, I had to go to a library and sit with hundreds of books open in front of me. So today the that
I
job,
used to do that.
yeah. So today it is much more easier, and I'd rather spend that time somewhere else. The time which used to formally be taken in research, invested in research, today I will work upon something else rather than doing that when I know a GPT model can do it, provided I verify it, right?
Well,
So I
yeah,
think,
exactly. As long as
yeah,
you do the sanity check
yeah,
after,
yeah,
I love
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that gives us a little something to think about over the break. So spend a little time around AI, the things you like about it, the things you're more questionable about, and hang with us. We'll be right back from the break.
Oh, checked it out, but we're here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I am back with the amazing and wonderful Ravalika Aduri. And so tell us a little bit about your career journey. I know you arrived at a moment where, as you describe it, you were burned out. How did you arrive at this point, and then what did you do once it happened?
Mm. Yep. So for a long time, I thought I knew what I was doing, why I was doing. I legit thought I was that person who in her 20s had everything figured out, right? Yeah. It felt very clear growth, impact, building a career, having a beautiful relationship, creating something meaningful. But if I'm being completely honest, there was also a quieter layer which was underneath all of it, where I need to prove myself over and over again because I was like, there's always something that you can get better at, right? I
Right,
was
yeah.
at that phase in life. So to validate that I was capable, that I was enough, and that I deserved to be where I was something that I was really craving in at that point in time. Burnout changed that completely. Because when you've reached a point of when you're exhausted, when you're disconnected, and you're questioning everything, those external motivations stop working entirely.
Yep.
No amount of things people tell you, even if they show up for you, even if they talk to you, sit with you, it doesn't work out after a point. My achievements didn't feel rewarding. My recognition did not feel like fulfilling. And that's when you're left with the more uncomfortable, but a very honest question that if my work, if my family is everything taken away from me, and if it just disappeared in a jiffy, would I still choose this path? Would I still be in this path of continuing to be a data and AI consultant in technology, or would I rather do so? What is the definition of me? Who am I as a person is something that I wanted to explore. And at
Yeah.
that moment, yeah, everything stopped. And I think the answer that I was trying to get to was something that changed me. Like today, I come from a much more grounded place than I was before. I used to be very aggressive as a person when it came to my work, but today I deeply care about people, about their feelings much more. So the perspective, it's a wider perspective that I have now. And I feel that is something that people get it in much later stages of their life, maybe once they are mid 30s or mid 40s. I was like, okay, late 20s is giving me such a big reality check and a learning. So I just take that because I know that burnout did not take away my ambition or my purpose that I was living. It was just trying to redefine the way I was looking at life. It was helping me understand that creating and impact is what actually matters, and rather than just getting the work done,
Yeah.
that is something. It made me much more quieter, much more intentional, and much more sustainable, because I think we are a Gen Z tribe where we want to get everything done in a jiffy, because
Yes.
patience has just run out of us, right? I
Well,
don't.
you were raised with the microwave, right? You're the
Yeah.
microwave generation.
Correct. I mean, you order and things get delivered to you in a jiffy. You just have to have a car to roam around. We never really understood that you need to wait to get stuff done. You need to have that bit of patience within you to get that done. So today I am a simple example is,
Hang
let's
on,
say
hang
if
on.
I,
Before we go into today's example, I'd like to understand, looking back, what were the signs that you were headed out into this burnout? What did it look like coming into it? What were the symptoms when it showed up? And you were
I
just like, I'm done.
I am done. So interesting. So it did not come as this dramatic collapse or a clear breaking point where I can go back to and say like, okay, this is where I actually broke down. No, that I think it was a series. It was more subtle, almost deceptive, because I still showed up. I was still functioning. I was still delivering. I was still showing up in meetings and boardrooms. I was still cooking for family. I was still going to the gym. But there is this hollowness that gets created within you.
Mm,
You are doing it all, but you're not doing it fully. You're just doing it because you were barely surviving. So that internal feeling when something started falling off, when from the outside it looked fine, but from the inside you were like deeply broken. Because I remember one morning waking up and I realized that I was completely disconnected, not just with family, with work, with everything. I was just doing it for the sake of doing it. Because I had to get it done, I was doing it. The willingness that I used to have, the curiosity that was within me was only, it faded out. But work used to excite me, that felt heavy. Small
mm,
tasks of even moving a certain piece of furniture from one corner of the room to the other started feeling extremely overwhelming. The moments that once brought me extreme joy, I had no feeling for it whatsoever at that point in time. So, for a long time, I did not call it burnout because I did not know or understand that it was burnout. I told myself that I just have to push harder, I have to be more disciplined, more grit and
yes.
determination, and more focused. But that's also because that's what we are taught, right? We are
Right.
taught that if you're disciplined and consistent, you can conquer the world. But when something feels off, the answer to it is to not do more, but the answer to it is to pause.
Yeah.
And that's what I've
How,
understood.
how did that realization arrive for you?
That, yeah. So I should probably give you an example because that
Sure.
is, yeah, that is what has happened. So I started working out at the gym 2 years ago. And I was pretty consistent, 4 days a week, strength training twice a week, running, and then one complete rest day. So let's say my weight was plateauing, right? After a point, the weight just plateaus. And
Yeah.
the only thing that I have known is, okay, I just have to do more of it. And then maybe I will get to that ideal weight that I'm looking at in my head.
Yes.
So when I was doing that, I got so aggressive doing that that I stopped giving importance to the form, especially when I was lifting weights, especially
Yes.
because breathing matters, my posture matters, everything matters. And it just cracked my back.
Mm.
So it took me a crack in the back to realize that doing more of what I should be doing is not going to help me when I was burnt out. I'd rather just hit brakes, take a pause, start reflecting, because reflection is not something that we are taught when we are young.
Oh, yeah.
Self-reflection, self-awareness is something. So that I'd say that is the point where I'm like, okay, I think I should take a step back. I should
Well,
just,
and a lot of times as a young person, you're given a lot of trouble for just hanging out and thinking.
yep, yep,
Yep.
yep. So I didn't know how to deal with that at that point in time, right? I cannot fix everything at one go. The prior me, the kid me would have been like, okay, I can just fix everything at a go. But no, I think adulthood teaches you that you can just take one thing at a time, stop multitasking, focus on something that is the most important. Give that instance your all. Slowly, step by step, it doesn't matter. As long as you kept moving, as long as I was in that entirety, fully invested in that task, I think that is how I started to build back the wall brick by brick.
Very nice. So I know it's not uncommon for people to,
Mhm.
from the outside, to look at something like this and go, oh my goodness, undisciplined, lazy, whatever. How do you respond to those sorts of accusations or judgments or whatever you want to call them?
Yeah. I think a lot of people confuse laziness or weakness to a burnout. But I think that misunderstanding comes from the way we've been conditioned to view productivity and effort. We always associate our worth with the output or the tangible output that we are trying to give. So, especially in the world of consulting, we're like, what is the tangible outcome of this client call
Yeah,
that
what,
I'm
what's
having?
the measurable target?
Measurable,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah. So when someone slows down, pulls back, or struggles to keep up, it's easy to label it as lack of effort. It's very easy to put that label saying, that person has just given up too early, could have tried a little bit harder. But burnout is not the absence of effort, it's the consequence of sustained effort without enough recovery, without enough support, without enough alignment with their goals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, in my experience, the people who burn out are rarely the ones who don't care. They're usually the ones who care utmost deeply and who have been there for a lot of other people in rooms that they were not even part of. The ones who take ownership, who go that extra mile, who hold themselves to extremely high standards. And I think that's exactly why it hits so hard when you start putting a label of maybe it's just their laziness or weakness kicking in.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people level those sorts of accusations because
Mm.
they know it's going to light some kind of a fire,
Yep.
hopefully, underneath the person who's receiving it. But I think what they don't realize when they go down that path is all you've done is you've piled more bricks on top of what this person is trying to
Yep.
drag around.
So
And
it's
what
like it's
what
like a
needs to
seed, right?
happen is they need to be given permission to put bricks down.
Yeah, there's this very beautiful analogy. Let's say you're a seed which is underneath the soil, right? And for you to germinate, I know you require sun, you require water, and you require moderate weather conditions. But if you pile that seed, that ground, with a pile of rocks, does that mighty seed have the strength within to pass through the soil and then the rock? No, it does not. As humans, I think it's knowingly, unknowingly, I think we just pile them up with so much more burden that it gets very difficult for that seed to germinate,
Yes.
especially when they're in such a dark phase in their life. We should rather give it more warmth, more light, more water, and then you can
and
see how
and
that
some
seed.
soil. Take some of those darn rocks away.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, on a practical day to day basis, what did your recovery look like? Where did you start?
Oh, my recovery was incredibly quiet. So I met this beautiful person at the gym who taught me about meditation, about sitting in silence through the day. I used to be this person, if I do not wake up at a certain time on a certain day, I used to cry the entire day saying that, okay, I have wasted my day.
Mm,
Let's say, oh, I didn't wake up at 6 a.m. I did not wake up. I did not go to the gym at 6 a.m. Even though it was just 7 a.m. I could have hit the gym at 7 a.m. It's completely all right. So just because I have ruined 1 hour of my day, I would let it affect the entire 23 hours of the remaining part of it, which I stopped completely. So my recovery was very quiet. And that was one of the very hardest things about it to do, to become completely quiet and still walk step by step. Because we are used to associating progress with visible change, with milestones, with achievements. I was like, no, in 10 days you have to do this, in 20 days you have to. It's like sprint planning that you do in your
yeah,
day-to-day
yeah.
life. Yeah. But recovery did not look like it looked up like walking maybe 2000 steps today. waking up and choosing yet another day to take things slower. It looked like setting some boundaries for yourself, spending a lot of time with yourself to understand and to make yourself aware that what is it that you love doing, what is it that you don't love doing. That self reflection part of it was the point which has changed a lot in my recovery process. It feels like you're doing very less compared to what you have been doing before, but you are being more present in what you're doing. That is what has actually helped me. So there were no dramatic transformations, something that the before picture or the after picture. No, it was that purely messy middle that kept me going. Where it's okay, I am not tied to the outcomes. I am not tied to anything that any tangible or measurable outcome. I will just keep going till I figure my way out. And I
How
think
did
eventually.
how did you let go of the story we tend to tell ourselves around, for example, the thought that, boy, if I wake up late by 30 minutes or whatever, it's going to just ruin the rest of my day. Nothing's going to happen as it's supposed to happen. That can be a difficult thought form to release. How did you encourage yourself to release that?
So there was this exercise I was doing, right? So I took a certain day and I jotted down everything that I have done in that day, how I reacted, how. The next day, I do not know how, maybe did I read it somewhere? Did I hear somebody? I fail to remember. I was like, I am going to do everything just the opposite of what I did on day one,
Hmm.
on this date, and I'll see how that works. And very surprisingly, let's say it's day X and day Y. And since I was doing complete opposite of what I did on day X on day Y was beautiful.
Aha.
Day Y felt so much more lighter, so much more meaningful. I felt calmer from within. That anxiety that usually kicks in when I did not deliver something on time, or maybe I promised something to somebody and I was panicking about it, not doing it to a perfection. No, I was like that 180-degree shift, I think, is what I needed in my life at that point in time. And even now, when I have to do something, I look back at both those days, day X and day Y. And if day Y made me much more calmer, much more smarter because I was able to think straight, think with many more perspectives, I definitely choose day Y. So that small exercise, I'd say, maybe I would have just
Yeah.
picked it up from a book. I don't seem to remember, but that is what has changed me
Yeah,
over
I
it.
like that. I love the discrete experiment because it's not like you committed to be this way. A lot of times we'll be like, well, this is the change, I'm going to commit to it. I like that you did the experiment. It's like, okay, I tried it this way, I recorded those results. Now I'm going to try it this other way, 180 difference, and record those results and see where it takes me. And since we're up on our second break, I'm going to invite the listeners to do that exercise. Dear listener, grab your sheet of paper and think about an area of your life that's overwhelming, that's weighing down on you. And think about what is one little experiment you can do around that particular topic. And just explore the data, see what it tells you, and hang with us. We'll be right back from the break.
Oh, check the loud, but we're here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. From no fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I am back with the amazing and wonderful Ravalika Aduri. And before the break, we invited people to start designing their little experiment of one. What's one thing you can test out and do differently, and then just check the data on it. Not every experiment works out the way we think we'd like it to, but there are no failed experiments. The data is what we're looking for, right? What were some of the things as you were going through your own process that you noticed that you didn't like, that you decided to release?
A deeply personal question. Yes. So I often cling on to people a lot. If I find warmth around people, I was like, oh, these are my people. They cannot be anybody else's people.
Aha.
right? They are mine. So I have to share with them and they have to share only with me. I think with age, when you lose certain friendships and start having a conflict in relationships, that's when you understand that everybody is a free soul. Everybody
Yes.
gets to do what they want to do. Just because I am that. So holding on, I was a big hoarder of people, of books, of things. And just like this exercise that I've done, I chose to dismantle everything at home, throw them out, whatever I did not need, whatever I did not use. And I think psychologically, even though I was cleaning the house, I was even decluttering my brain. And today, I'm not saying I'm still there, but today I am not that clingy person anymore. I deal with reciprocity that if you do good to me, I will do good to you. If this is what you have to offer, this is what I have to offer. No overstepping, no underwhelming responses. I think that has me keeping that version of me who was too clingy has helped me do so many wonders. And I should have learned that lesson earlier than I actually learned it.
Yeah, it's a difficult lesson to learn. We're raised to be possessive that way. I mean, if you ask somebody about who's in their life, it's my husband, it's my kids, it's my parents, it's my employer. And while that's useful linguistically, it's
Yeah.
not so useful psychologically.
100%. And also, me being the only kid to my parents, I always bonded even with friends at a sibling level. So, like, okay, if God didn't give me a sibling, but if I had a sibling, I think he or she would be one. But more often than not, those people wouldn't have put you in the same spectrum of their life.
Exactly.
You did it, right? So that started showing up in huge ways and form. And then I had to start unlearning and relearning as to how to build relationships.
Yes.
So I hope people don't have to go through such hardships before they get to this learning.
Yeah, I've been on the flip side of that. I had a friend at one point. We've since drifted apart, but she was much more attached to the relationship than I was, to the point that she wanted an accounting of what I'm doing and what I'm involved with at a level that I give my husband, but why? I don't feel obligated to give that to anyone else in my world, you know? And it became a real stress point between us. Yeah. So I think it's healthy what you're doing here.
Yeah, it is. I think the more such struggles hit you, I think you start empathizing with everybody. So
Yes.
you don't really have anything negative against anybody. I was like, that's okay. Maybe that person's upbringing was a little different. Maybe this person does not open up to anybody and everybody. And I think that makes all of us much more calmer, much more easier to deal with.
I love that. So having worked through releasing a lot of things, rethinking how you're approaching your life and your activities and what you tell yourself. How has all of this reshaped your relationship with what you're doing now? And tell us, what are you doing now? Because I know you're not just sitting at home meditating.
Yes. So work-wise, I am a client relationship manager with key pharma clients across the globe. I used to think I was married to a certain pharma client, right? I used to delve so much with them, and I would feel extremely bad if they gave me a feedback. And then I would go back to my delivery team saying that we have not done a good job. What is it that we are doing? It's like I was married to 10 other accounts.
Yes,
And slowly I started realizing, I was like, I'm not married to any one of them. I'm just dating every one of them. I'm just going to give them their good time as long as I'm there. And once I'm gone from that space. So that removing that marriage mentality when it came to maintaining the relationships has been absolutely good. And I think I was able to do it only because I was able to remove that clingy part of me within personally. So I was able to resonate that professionally. Like I said, I was very aggressive initially, where getting things done, it has to get over in a jiffy. Let's say if I have a client meeting today, I have to send out a thank you note to him in the next 5 minutes. or next 6 minutes, saying that, okay, I'm going to miss the boat, else I'm not going to sail in it. But now I give it some time. I give it some time to the customers also to understand what is it that we are offering. What is the kind of conversation that he or she would want to have with us next if they intend to, right? And that small gap of 1 2 days gives them the time for reflecting, gives me the time to reflect. And maybe on the third day when I reach out to them, they are more warm in accepting. I'm like, hey, this is what I've sat with in the last 2 3 days, along with what you've asked for. This is what we have to offer. Or, are there any pain points? And more surprisingly, they are the ones who reach out to you because you gave them the time. I think
Yes.
giving people their time to respond back rather than sitting on their heads to respond back to you, like typically what we do in sales and account management, I think it
Good
works.
meeting. Do you want to sign yet?
I'm like,
Yeah.
do you have 2 minutes? I'm like, no, everybody is busy with their own life. So those two things have changed beautifully when it comes to fixing things personally, which actually impacted professional space. That's something that I would vouch for. Outside of work, today Ravalika Reddy still goes to the gym, still works out, occasionally does aerial yoga, just so that staying upside down in the aerial yoga poses gives you a broader perspective of life.
Yeah, aerial yoga sounds like so much fun. I haven't had the opportunity for that
Oh,
yet.
you should definitely try. It's called Air. If it's there somewhere around in your city, you should definitely. It's beautiful. You're in that complete Zen mode where you absolutely don't care about anything in that, 50-minute block that you set for yourself. And I don't spiral anymore if something bad happens or if something that you sets you down. Not every day is a gala, happy sunshine day,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And life happens at
Yeah,
the
life
oddest
happens.
points, you know.
And it's how fast you get back to your momentum is something that I work on today. That it's okay. If it was a bad hour, so I'd rather focus on the remaining hours at hand. If it was a bad day, I'd focus on the rest of the year that I have at hand. It's how fast I pick up the momentum. It's how fast I go back to my notes, start self-evaluating and seeing that there is something that I can rectify, something that I could work on, because absolutely the only thing that is in control of is me, myself at the end of the day.
Yeah, you and your actions and your attitude.
That is about it. It took me a lot of beatings on the back to understand that, but at the end of the day, controlling your emotions, controlling what you do, and controlling how you put it up in front of people. Not everybody can take the feedback, or whatever you'd want to talk to them. Let's say
Yeah.
when I'm talking to a certain set of people, I have to articulate in a way that they wouldn't feel offended. So that is something that I work on these days. And I love doing that because I understand how the person is also. And for a person like me who's focuses on the intricate details when I start off building a relationship with anybody, I think that has also added like a feather to the cap while I'm self-reflecting, evaluating, fixing things here and there, and building something better.
I love that. I love that. I kind of want to shift back to your getting back up to speed after life gives you a setback. And I think the thing I want to put a spotlight on around that is in each one of those examples that you gave, if the hour was bad, I focus on what's left in the day. That particular strategy, there's a lot to be said for that zooming out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because the thing that you ran into today, whatever the setback or barrier was, if you zoom out into the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the year, the rest of the decade, it becomes this little tiny blip. It's not
Yep.
this big mountainous thing. And so I love the zooming out because it gives you that proportion and puts it into a perspective, I think, that makes it easier to deal with.
It is. It's like you're inside the bubble. And once you're outside the bubble, you realize there are so many other bubbles that you have to look into. It's fine. Unless you choose to stay within the bubble, that's when it gets difficult. And I don't think there can be any recovery, there can be any momentum or a routine that can be built as long as you are very rigid in your head while you're inside of that bubble. I think it's only with resilience, with a little bit of flexibility, that we can actually make those changes within ourselves.
Yeah. So we're getting down to the tail end here. I know you've got I think you said it was a Substack. Would you
Yeah,
like to tell
Substack.
us a little bit about your Substack and where to find you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I just love writing. I used to write prose and poetry while I was in school. Then life happened, so I stopped writing. And then you're focusing on job hunting, getting better at work. It's just been, I think, a month and a half or so. One of my senior sat me down and he told me, he's like, that is one thing that you can never let go of is your writing. Because your writing used to back in school and back in college in undergrad when I used to write, people used to wait for me to publish those articles because they always had a keen knack of giving my own perspective to a story that was already very well defined. So he sat me down, all credits to him that it's consecutive seventh or eighth week, and I've been writing two articles per week at least.
Good
So
job.
yeah, thank you so much. Thanks to him. Please go, feel free to read. It's out there. I just write for the love of writing that I have. There's no
Yeah.
agenda, there are no quick fixes. Maybe I will do that in the days to come or in the months to come. But up until then, it's just free flow writing from me.
Yeah, thoughtful, insightful. I love
Yeah.
that. And you can look in the show notes. We'll have the link to the Substack down there, so you can check that out. So, in the last minute or so that we have, what would you tell someone who's deep in it right now and who's doing all the things and going a million miles an hour and doesn't feel like they've got the space to stop and breathe?
Oh, yeah. I will just put it this way. At some point, your body, your mind will force you to stop. So don't get it to the point where everything in your, every bone in your body is asking you to pause. Because if you've reached that point, it will get very hard for you to bounce back. Rather, take things slow. Taking things slow does not mean that you're giving up. It means that you're protecting yourself. You don't have to make drastic changes overnight. You don't have to make those 180 degrees shift overnight if that's not what you want to do. It worked out for me. It might necessarily not work out for you. You don't have to step away from anything to fix stuff. Just start small. Give yourself the permission to rest without being guilty about it.
Yeah.
Say no to one thing that does not serve you anymore. And it's fine. People are going to talk about you even if you are the best person in the world. There
Yes.
is always something to be spoken.
Yeah.
That external validation is something that you have to stop right away. You have to be your biggest cheerleader because that is absolutely the only person that is going to be with you till you take your last breath. So take a moment, breathe without feeling guilty, without feeling like you should be doing something for someone else. Do for yourself first. That is something that I have learned. And I really want you, and in fact, everybody, to take more smaller pauses than you think you need. Because sometimes the strongest thing that you can do is not pushing yourself hard enough, but the strongest thing that you can do is to actually let it go, to listen to your body and take a pause and probably start afresh with a widely different perspective, which is actually going to let you do bigger wonders.
I love that. I love that. There's a lot of wisdom in that. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with
Oh,
us today. And thank you to you listeners who have dialed in today to listen to this conversation. I would love to hear from you. Just shoot a comment below the video over here on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast, you can shoot me an email to Zofia, Zofia, at steminstilettos.com. Let me know what you loved, who else you'd like to see me talk to. And until next week, go out, be bold, be beautiful, and be authentically you.